What's up, folks? I'm Dwayne.
I'm Alicia.
And this is Blackboard Gaming, where we teach you about all these great board games that are out there,
waiting to be played by you and yours. I'm a simple man, don't wanna complication.
Hey, everybody!
Today, we're going to give you the heads up on a game coming to Kickstarter soon. That game is Cascadia, Alpine Lakes.
Cascadia Alpine Lakes is the standalone sequel to the 2022 Spiel the Jahres winner, Cascadia. It is designed by Randy Flynn and being published by Flatout Games.
Let's go to the table for an overview of how this game is played. Please keep in mind this is a prototype.
Cascadia Alpine Lakes is a tile placement pattern building game for 1 to 4 players, where the players are competing trying to create a beautiful alpine environment. First off, let me introduce you to the new wildlife tokens that come in Cascadia Alpine Lakes. We have the cougar, the marmot, the eagle, the mountain goat, and the pika. We're going to take all 90 of these wildlife tokens and place them in the cloth bag and give it a good mix around, and then we're going to place this bag next to the play area. Next, we're going to count out the number of habitat tiles that we need for this game based on the number of players. Then we'll take the selected habitat tiles and give them a good shuffle without looking at them, and then place them in face down stacks next to the play area. And we'll make sure that the bag of wildlife tokens and those habitat tiles are in reach of all players. The habitat tiles that weren't chosen will be returned to the box. Next, we're going to randomly select a habitat scoring card for each of the 3 sets of habitat cards. So you can see there's forest, glacier, and meadow. And each of these habitats come in a set of 4 cards. So we have A, B, C, and D. We're going to use A for this teach. So the rest of these habitat cards will be returned to the box. And then after selecting those cards, we're going to place those cards in the middle of the play area where all players can see them. Each player will randomly be given one of these starter habitat tiles, and they're going to place that tile in front of them in their personal play area. Then we will reveal 4 habitat tiles from the face down stacks and place them in the middle of the play area. Then we will draw 5 wildlife tokens from the bag and place 4 out, pairing them up with the revealed habitat tiles. Next, we will place the supply of nature tokens in the middle of the play area in reach of all players, and then the last person to have seen any of these wildlife will be chosen as the first player, or we could just randomly pick somebody, and then the game can begin. So the object of Cascadia Alpine Lakes is to score the most points, and I'll go over how those points are scored later on in the overview. The game will continue until these habitat tiles that are face down are totally gone and we can't replace a habitat tile that has been drafted. So on a player's turn, they're going to draft one of these pairings and add it to their environment that's in their personal play area. So if I decide to take this habitat tile, I will have to take this mountain goat. Or if I take this one, I got to take this eagle. And then we will replace that tile and that wildlife token, drawing that token from the bag. So if a player has one of these nature tokens in front of them, and I tell you how these are gained, then they can spend it to do one of 2 things. the first thing they can do, they can return it to the supply in order to draft any habitat tile or any wildlife token. So I could take this habitat tile and this eagle if I wanted to. Or I can spend this nature token, returning it to the supply to wipe the wildlife tokens that are out there. I will place them off to the side, and then we will replenish the area with 4 more wildlife tokens before returning the other ones back to the bag. And I could do that as many times as I have nature tokens. Now, there's this thing called overpopulation. So on a player's turn, let's say instead of this was the choices that they have, let's say there were 3 eagles out there. Then the active player can choose to replenish the supply, taking those 3 eagles, placing them off to the side, and redraw 3 new wildlife tokens before placing those wild eagles back into the bag. If let's say all of these were eagles, then the active player has to replenish. He has to wipe that board and redraw new wildlife tiles. So, like I said, a player, on their turn, they're going to draft one of these pairings. So let's say this player decides that they're going to redraft this. And then we would put a new tile out there and put a new wildlife token out there. When adding that wildlife token or that hexagon tile to your environment, you could do it in any order. So I can add this wildlife token first and this second, or vice versa. Now, when adding wildlife tokens, you have to place it onto a terrain that can accommodate that specific wildlife. So on my starting tile, this is the only area I could place this mountain goat. So I would take this mountain goat and place it here. Now, if you see this symbol here, this is a keystone area. And whenever I place a wildlife token on top of one of those keystone icons, then that's how I get one of these nature tokens from the supply. Now, these hexagon tiles, as you see, there are 3 different terrains: glacier, meadow, and forest. And that coincides with the terrain scoring cards up there. And so I can place this, spin it around however I want it. I could place it. Oh, also, there's these lakes. You see these lakes, you cannot place any wildlife tokens on these lakes. So like I said, as long as one side of that terrain is touching my existing environment, I could place that hexagon tile. Another thing I could do is I could place this on top of existing hexagon tiles, and they could be on the same tile. Like I can cover up the same tile, or if I had, like, let's say this was here, I can actually do that as long as it just covers up that tile. And let's say later on, if I wanted to place this here, I couldn't do that because I have to make sure that it's only like one elevation up. So if I place this here, that's 2 elevations up. I have to make sure that there's a side that's only 1 elevation lower than that tile I'm trying to place. So another thing to pay attention to is so let's say I wanted to place this here. So you see there's a mountain goat there. In order to do that, I have to make sure that tile can accommodate that specific wildlife. So I could place this here, which means that mountain goat will come up there. It won't be discarded. It moves up to the next elevation. Now, one thing I want to point out, and there's a way that you can get 2 nature tokens. So let's say, like I said, I put this mountain goat here. I get one of these nature tokens. Then let's say this was a tile I drafted. This has a mountain goat and a nature keystone tile. So I could place this here, which will elevate that mountain goat, and that will give me another nature token. After the habitat tile has been replaced out into the middle of the play area, along with a wildlife token drawn from the bag, then the next player, in clockwise order, will take their turn drafting one of these pairings and adding it to their environment. And like I said, the game will continue until these stacks of habitat tiles are completely gone. Let's say this is how a player's environment looks at the end of the game. The first, we would score points based on the habitat scoring card. So we would look at the forest, and the forest scores for each forest corridor that has all the unique animals in that corridor. So on this environment, we have 2 forest corridors. This one has all five of the unique animals. Of course, there are 2 cougars, but the second cougar doesn't count. So we will look on the score. That's 17 points right there. And then we got this forest corridor, but there's only 3 unique animals in there. So that will score 7 points for a total of 24 points. Then we will look at the meadow. And the meadow scores for the continuous grouping of animals that are in that corridor. So we have 1 corridor, a meadow corridor on this environment. And so we got 2 cougars right here. That's going to be 5 points. And then we got 2 mountain goats. That's 5 points right there. We have 2 marmots, but they're not together. So by themselves, they're just going to score 2 points twice. So that's 14 points. But then we got these pikas, and there are 3 of those, and that scores 8 points. So that's a total of 22 points right there for the meadow. Then we will look at the glacier scoring, and the glacier will score for each corridor that has a pair of the same animal. So we have 2 glacier corridors, one here and one here. This one has a pair of mountain goats, and this one has a pair of eagles. So they both score, and so for 2 of them, that is 11 points. Next, we would score for the lakes. Now, lakes score 1 point per their height. So this lake and this lake is at height 1, so those are 1 point each. This one is at a second level, so that's 2 points. This one's on the third level, so that's 3 points. But the lakes also score if they're completely surrounded. It doubles their score. So this lake is completely surrounded. So that's 3 times 2, which is 6. This one's completely surrounded, so that's 2 times 2, which is 4. So your lakes will score 12 points. Now add that together, that's how much points we get for our habitats. Then we will look at our animals. So the animals score, if an animal is on the 3rd level, it will score 2 points. So if you look here, we got this mountain goat at the 3rd level, we got the cougar at the 3rd level, and we got this marmot at the 3rd level. So that's 2 times 3, that's 6 points. And then we would check the table to see who has the highest animal, and they would get a bonus. So if it was a 3 to 4 player game, whoever has the highest cougar will score a bonus 3 points, and then whoever's second place will score 1 point. 2-player game, the highest player will get a bonus 2 points, and the second player will get nothing. Then we will add that together, and then we will score points for any nature tokens that we did not spend. So those are 1 point each. And then we will add up our score, and whoever has the most points will be the winner of Cascadia Alpine Lakes. If we were playing an advanced game of Cascadia Alpine Lakes, we would have added these environment scoring cards as part of setup. These scoring cards come in 3 types. There's habitat scoring, spatial scoring, and wildlife scoring. We will randomly draw 1 from each set and then place it out on the table in view of all players. So for example, for this habitat scoring, we will have lands of 3, where the players will score 1 point for each habitat corridor of size 3 or more. Here we have populated lakes, where you would score 2 points for each lake that is totally surrounded by wildlife out in your environment. In this one, we have playing favorites, where the players will score 1 point for the wildlife token that they have the most of out in their environment. So as you can see from the overview, that even though this game shares a lot of DNA with Cascadia, like familiar DNA in the rule set, because you're just drafting the pairing of tiles and the wildlife tokens, and of course the art, same beautiful art by Bel Sobel. There's familiar territory there. I think this is a totally different game.
I agree with you this is a different gaming experience. It's more challenging. One of the things I like about Cascadia is, which is, by the way, one of my favorite games,
Yep.
is that it is, to me, it has a little complexity, but it's not a brain burner. I can sit right down, get to the table, have an enjoyable and mentally stimulating experience. Cascadia Alpine Lakes, on the other hand,
Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
it's a little bit more complex. Therefore, I have to be in a certain frame of mind to really tackle it and be strategic.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I love Cascadia, playing Cascadia with you, but I always look for a little bit more complexity. And so that's why I appreciate about this standalone expansion. You don't need Cascadia to play it, but you can sit here and play this one because I think Cascadia Alpine Lakes elevates, pun intended, elevates the complexity for those who are looking to play something with a little bit more meat, you know.
So the thing about, as if you've watched our channel for any length of time, I hope you realize that I truly am a casual gamer and he likes stuff that's a little crunchier.
Yep.
So I think that the beauty of Alpine Lakes is it's familiar enough with Cascadia that you can learn the game quickly, but
Easy to get to the table.
but it doesn't replicate the Cascadia experience.
No, it doesn't. It levels it up. Pun intended again.
So I think there's actually room for both of these games because for Cascadia is a game that you can use to bring people into the hobby, whereas Cascadia Alpine Lakes,
I can play Cascadia with her for a casual, comfy night. But I can play Cascadia Alpine Lakes with my Friday night group because they really get into some crunchier games. And that's what I like about this. Just trying to figure out placing those tiles to bring, one of those scoring criteria is you only score the animals specifically if they're on the third level. And the higher you get those lakes score more points times being completely surrounded. So you're trying to...
So you have a lot more to consider when you're making decisions. And that, for some people, makes it more interesting and more exciting.
Yep. And I really liked it.
So really, what I said was, Dwayne, this is the Cascadia for people like you who need their games to be hard.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not overly. It's just a little bit more complex. Like that's why I appreciate it when they brought out the Landmarks expansion for OG Cascadia.
Yes.
I like that. But this one is just there's room to have this one in your collection also.
Even if you have Cascadia.
And I do love the fact that they introduced 5 different, 5 new animals.
That is cool.
Especially the eagle. Don't get me wrong, I miss my bear. But I love I love eagles too.
Yeah, I do like that they did that.
Yeah, and like I said, the art, Belsoba art is familiar. It's still beautiful. I love that it's still there. And yeah, Cascadia Alpine Lakes. I think I enjoy the complexity, and I think this game is made for those folks that, while thinking Cascadia is a little bit too lightweight, I think Cascadia Alpine Lakes ups the ante.
Yes.
I don't know if I can use that as a pun a third time, but it does. So I really enjoy that. So, like we said, Cascadia Alpine Lakes is coming to Kickstarter soon, and we're going to leave a link in the video description so you can go check out the Kickstarter page. And I'm Dwayne.
I'm Alicia.
This has been Blackboard Gaming.
We will see you next time.